this very blue marble, this very Mother Earth, the land that we stand on today, this floating rock in space, this is going to be the center of my discussion today. The wonderful place that we all call our very own, very comfortable, very loving home. Our Mother Earth, our planet. And that is a very important thing which we all continuously are not grateful for. Something we fail to realize, something of great virtue, of great value, that does demand great respect, something we as humans fail to give her. Before I begin, I'd like you all to start with one thought, that according to me, the greatest threat to humanity currently is actually humans themselves. I'll begin with taking you all through a journey of what's going to be like, and my center of my discussion is also going to be the diversity that is very much prevalent in our Mother Nature, in our Mother Earth today. Let me take you all through a journey of our past, what it was like, what it's supposed to be like, and then move on to incorporate the present and what will be or may be the future if we don't do something today. The corals of the Andaman Sea. My parents had actually gone to the Andaman Nicobar Islands before I was born, and they tell me the mesmerizing experience they had, and how looking at these corals was something which actually opened them, and how to them the world was in black and white before this, but when they saw these corals, like that was a splash of paint, which was missing in their own lives. That talks to us about the diversity, the spectrum of colors that Mother Nature provides us naturally. There is no need for us to add an extra pigmentation, because she is so beautiful in her own true form. The ferocious tiger. For example, in India, we have the Royal Bengal tiger. The teeth, the stripes, the body, and the way they move, they hunt, that talks to us about the true essence of leadership, that talks to us about the true essence of utilizing your abundance and your very being on earth. The graceful deer that leap through the grasslands, and, of course, the clear, clear skies. Something which we all had really a good time looking at when we were, unfortunately, in lockdown during the COVID-19 pandemic. And let's also think about what this particular thing teaches us. Is this implying that the only way Mother Earth can actually heal herself is when humans are eradicated from existence? Or is there a balance in between? And I'm sure you will have the answer to this particular question by the end of my talk today. Let's move on to something else. Because this, as I just mentioned, is not it. This is our reality, the bleaching corals. This is our reality. This is our reality. This is our reality. This is the truth which we all fail to understand and to actually inhibit in our core values. We talk about sensitivity, integrity, we talk about being who we are, we talk about living the way we want to live. But what we forget is that we sideline Mother Earth. As humans, it's also important to understand that when you want to develop, you need to develop with Mother Earth, you need to develop alongside her and not against her. I'll give you all a quick analogy about our rivers in India. You know, in India, you call your rivers as Maiya. You say Yamuna Maiya, you say Ganga Maiya. The term Maiya is actually a Hindi word, which in English means mother or mom. I personally would never treat my mother, someone who's given me life, the way we're treating our rivers today. We spoke about earlier in today's session by some wonderful other speakers about what is the actual condition of our rivers and how the Yamuna Maiya that is supposed to feed the soul of India alongside wonderful other rivers is actually becoming and turning into, pardon my words, but a toxic drain. And that is the reality of our country, not just our country, but of the entire world. Before I move on, I'd like to talk to you about one thing. And I want you all to remember this as you move on, that no change is actually a one-person change, but every change in existence has to start with one person. We can't wait for other people to take action. We can't wait for other people to grow just because we want to grow. If you want to do something in your own life, you don't wait for other people to tell you when you're passionate about it. And that's the passion which is missing amongst us and amongst the wonderful grassroots level of India, that is the youth, that is very much prevalent. And you know, India has a very big advantage in actually developing with Mother Earth, and I'll tell you why. The reason is because India has one of the largest young human resource bases. And this young human resource base is what's going to help us, and not just us, but the entire world develop and change. Because change is something that has a rippling effect. I'll talk to all of you about one of the organizations which I've built that's called Hari Koshish. And Hari Koshish is something I founded in the lockdown, and it's a group aiming towards building a brighter, better, and a greener tomorrow. Before I move on to the science of climate change and what exactly I'm going to talk about regarding diversity in nature, I'd love to talk to you all about some of the work which I do. I want to take you down the memory lane to when I was in 4th grade. And our school was graced by the presence of a wonderful environmentalist, a very, very kind woman, Miss Madhu Bhatnagar. And her work is absolutely commendable. She had laid down the importance of climate education well before the Honorable Supreme Court had actually given out its jurisdiction. And this is how I've advanced, this is how I've grown, and this is who I've become. And how being a change maker and being a climate activist is actually not just my work, but it's something which is a big part of my personality. And is something that has shaped me into who I am today. My journey started out with one session by Mrs. Madhu Bhatnagar that was called Mother Nature Needs Half. And this is what excited me, because of course I knew at that time through our SST classes or science classes that there's something going on. What is global warming? What is climate change? What are these headlines everywhere? And what is every teacher in every class coming to me and telling me about, kuch to karo, do something, be proactive, be productive. But the one thing which was missing me at that time was A, the passion, and B, the knowledge and the awareness of actually what is required to be done. Not just understanding the problem, which is, of course, a big part of addressing any change, but also to understand what exactly you can do to actually counteract the negative or the adversities of the current world. And she started off by talking about how to balance Mother Nature, as I was talking about in the beginning of my speech, and to allow her to replenish herself. You don't need to give out everything. All Mother Nature asks for is half the space, half the time, half the effort, to actually allow her to heal herself and to be who she was in her own former glory, in her golden age. Hari Koshish, as I mentioned, my organization actually started off with a single person, and I started this off by making Instagram posts on Canva about what is climate change. But then I soon came to an agreement with my own self that, of course, that's very important, but that's not going to get me anywhere. With 56 followers on Instagram in the first day of the lockdown, and nothing but two posts made on Canva, which were half the template I already took from there, is not going to allow me to be the change I want to be and be the change I wish to see. And that's when I lacked the motivation at that time, so I stopped really working towards my organization. But then later on, I got in touch with various organizations and who've done honorable work like Pratyek, Save the Children India, UNICEF, and MASH Project, which actually helped me grow. Today, I'm a part of the Young Campaigners program by Save the Children India, and also a very proud intern at that very organization. And that's helped me to actually get inspired by other young people, by other young change makers, by other young minds that are doing what they can in their very own capacities to drive change. And that is when I started Hari Koshish. And you have no idea how proud it makes me to tell you all today that what started off as a one-person thing, we're now a team of 21 young people who are not just from India, not just from Delhi NCR, but we have members from Bangalore, from Uttarakhand, that are working tirelessly on different events, be it online, be it offline, without discriminating, because Mother Earth also does not discriminate. Ma'am, sir, everybody out there, you and I breathe the same air, we eat the same food, and we live in the same planet. And the very lesson which this teaches us is that when Mother Nature doesn't discriminate, what gives humans the right to discriminate? When our very own foundation did not discriminate, when our race laid its existence on this civilization of human race, what developed inside the human mind to discriminate between me and you for my gender, for my sexuality, for my wealth, for my creed, for my caste, or for any other matter? And that is also a key element of diversity. Okay, coming on to why climate change. Now, of course, all of us here know about what is climate change, so I'm not going to talk about what exactly is and what the science behind it is, because I know all of us have memorized a one-paragraph-long discussion and a definition for our geography exams, and I'm sure all of us do remember that as well. So moving on to why climate change and why do we see it in every particular headline. Every day you pick up the newspaper, there's going to be at least one article, if not on the front page, somewhere in the newspaper that talks about climate change. Now, why climate change? Let me link this to how it affects you directly. Climate change is also an impact of global warming, that is the annual or average rise in temperatures of the world. Now, when I say the number 2, does it sound like a very big number to anyone? Just 2. No, right? But when I talk about the term 2 degrees Celsius, this 2 degrees Celsius is actually the reason why our Mother Earth has lost her former glory, and it is also the reason which we fail to achieve and which we fail to, pay attention to and we often neglect. Because according to us, 2 degrees Celsius is a very small number. It's just 2. It's not 100 degrees Celsius. It's just 2 degrees Celsius. It's fine. But it's actually not fine, because that's what resulted in the loss of the coral of the corals. That's what resulted in the bleaching of the corals, the loss in ecosystems, and thus the loss in diversity of the ecosystems, of the animals, of the organisms and the living beings present on our blue marble. And this is why climate change. Because climate change is directly associated with you. And before I continue, I'd like you all to picture this one analogy, which I absolutely love, and it's something I came up with recently. I want you all to think of, to all of those who might find this topic very boring, something which they feel is, just one more person here to talk about it, and, just so that they can miss their double math period. But it's actually not just regarding that. Picture climate change to be like a video game, okay? And the monster, the ultimate purpose of the video game is to defeat a monster by whatever any move. And the monster to be defeated in this particular game is climate change, the ghost scarring our planet. And when you play any game, you need some controllers. For example, if I'm playing on any PlayStation or any Xbox or any such other gadget, there's some joystick or there's some controller. Imagine that you, the youth, are that joystick, and your hands are actually over that controller. Every move that you take decides a particular action in this game. So what do we understand from this? That it is you, it is me, it is us who are responsible collectively for climate change, and it is going to be us who are collectively responsible for the rippling effect of climate action. Talking about the fact that the Earth is dying and we need to stop denying. I'm not going to continuously give out quotes to you because that's not something I'm here to do today, but I am going to tell you some one-liners which I want you to take back when you go home today. Think upon this and realize and understand what is your carbon footprint? What is your emission on the Earth? What are you doing that is causing a negative impact, an adverse impact on Earth? And what can you do to actually fix that? Moving on to the diversity present in nature. Before I do that, I'd like to take you all through a very quick definition. Biodiversity is a multitude of living things that makes up life on Earth. It encompasses everything from humans, animals, and plants to fungi and bacteria, and the ecosystems that house them, such as the oceans, the forests, the mountains, environments, and the coral reefs. Now, when I talk about diversity in nature, what do I mean by this? There's a wonderful phenomenon in nature that's called a symbiotic relationship, and this is something which really excites me and it makes me passionate. When I talk to you about an acacia tree that's generally found in the deciduous mountain regions and deciduous forest regions, there is this big tree called the acacia tree. And when I talk to you about ants, do any of you think there can be a relation between an ant and an acacia tree? Anyone? Anyone can picture a relation between, those two living organisms? Actually, that's a diversity of nature, because they live in a symbiotic relationship. How? I'll take you through this very quickly. In the deciduous forest, since it's always a lack of water also prevalent, the acacia tree and many other trees have developed their spines, have developed their leaves into small thorns or spines, right? And when other animals tend to eat upon these and try to cut upon the flesh of the stem or the bark, these ants that are living on the stems, taking nutrients from the stems, actually attack that animal so that the animal knows not to mess with that particular tree. And this is the symbiotic relationship, and this is what Mother Nature teaches us. 3 things that we learn from diversity prevalent in nature. A, leadership. B, essence of utilizing the abundance of resources present on the Earth. C, never neglect anyone's power. When we see an ant walking, we never seem to believe that this ant could be the reason why this particular tree is existing, and why the human race is existing because of the existence of that particular tree. So indirectly, the ant is responsible for our existence on Mother Earth, but we neglect the presence of the ant. Not just, if I see an ant over here, I'm going to completely ignore it. But if I pay attention to the particular ant and how it's really started, I'm going to understand the science behind it. I'm going to understand the knowledge that I seek from it. Science is not just, according to me, it's not just segregating it into chemistry, physics, and bio. The science behind anything is actually understanding the concept behind anything. And that is what I mean when I use the term science. Understanding the relation, the concept, the theory, and the practicality of something. Nature teaches us how to convert what we read and what we learn into practical knowledge that helps us actually work in the present day and time. Because that is going to be the real test of our lives, of how we live and the impact which we make on Mother Earth. Youth is the catalyst of change. Remember this very statement. Why is youth the catalyst of change is something I've already spoken to all of you about. And in the course of my presentation right now, I'm also going to talk about how this catalyst, the youth, in the reaction of actually balancing the ecosystems with the existence of human races or any other civilization to ever enter our blue marble, can live in coexistence and can live when both of them are equally flourishing and one of them doesn't take advantage over the others. Because coming back to nature, we don't want humans and Mother Nature to have a parasitic relationship. We want them to have a symbiotic relationship when both of them actually benefit and when both of them actually do not take any suffering from the other. What can we do? Learn from experience. I've always believed in experiential learning. Don't just open a textbook, read a chapter, and get done with it after the exam. When you go out, tend to observe. Maybe just for 2 minutes, instead of being like this in the car, go like this in the car. See outside the window, look at what's going on, and instead of neglecting anything that's happening, observe. See. And you're going to notice just the amount of diversity which we have. I always believe to actually experience nature, you don't have to go on a safari at all. All you need to do is roll down the window of your car or maybe walk for a mile or a kilometer or how much ever you can in your own capacity or take a stroll to a bay outside, anywhere in the park, even in your balcony. And that's when you can experience nature. And that's the first step of actually providing the change which you wish to see in the world. Next, educate. Education is something which, of course, through a schooling system, through any university, we've all understood the importance of. And how we as human race have actually civilized on the core value and on the stem of education. Empower. When you see somebody else out there doing some kind of action, doing something which is out of the blue, instead of discouraging what they're doing, instead of, just because, don't do it for the fame, do it for the cause. In my own experience, whenever I've tried to do any particular drive, I've done anything which is something which not everybody resonates to or everybody does, I've been accumulated with the fact that I'm just extra. And the reason I do all these things is to gain fame and for me to show people that I'm going to be superior than them because I'm doing this particular drive or I'm doing this particular thing. But that's not the reason of me working hard. The reason of why I'm working hard is because I want to see that change, and that's because I've realized. And instead of discouraging the youth, instead of discouraging your fellow friends, classmates, change makers, empower them. Learn from them and seek knowledge from them, and don't discourage them. Practice. Practice means perfect, makes perfect. Whatever you do, whatever you preach, it's important for you to do that and to analyze that because you learn anything and everything that you teach only from your experience. And that's why I've also heard so many of my teachers talking to me about how they have learned more teaching than they did when they were themselves learning. Be sustainable. Whatever option you have to be sustainable, pick that. If I live 2 minutes away from a particular place, I don't need to use the car. I can walk, I can cycle, and cycling is a very fun thing to do. In fact, when I wake up in the morning, when I have time, when I don't have to study, I actually take my phone, I put on some earphones, and I listen to music, and I cycle downstairs, I take rounds in my society, and I observe what's going on, and that's a wonderful way for me to kickstart my morning because that really gives me the pump of adrenaline I need to fight through that day. Lastly, be sensitive. Understand that there are inequalities present in the world of today. No matter how much we may regret the current inequalities, they are existing. For example, there's something called climate inequalities, and I'm going to say this out loud because this is the very truth of not just our nation, but many other nations and our world collectively. In smaller regions, smaller cities, there is this actual fact, and it's not a stereotype at all. It's the reality that where there is a low underground water table and where water is needed, of course, water is needed in every household for every person. A woman has to carry, this huge heavy pot on her head, walk thousands of kilometers, hundreds of kilometers, that's obviously an exaggeration, and get just one bucket of water or one matka of water to her house. Climate change hits different. Even though it's gone from local to global, it is hitting different, and it's important for you to be sensitive towards that. Hurting anyone's sentiments is not going to get you anywhere, and I strongly believe this, and in not just this context. When you don't have anything good to say, just stay silent, because silence is also an answer. And I'd like to end with this particular thought, that action plans are not equal to action, because only action is equal to action. Many a times and many a things in our world, it's going to be a very que sera sera attitude, that whatever will be, will be. But only some things in life we have a control of, and that control science is going to teach us. So it's important that we take this control into our hands and be who we are and do what we're meant to do. Thank you, everybody.